Mafia culture is a phenomenon which has captured audiences' attention and interest for decades now. And since the 1970s, there has been a string of excellent mafia-inspired films getting released every couple of years. And with a collection of films that ranges into the tens of thousands, it can be hard to understand which mafia movies you should watch first. So in this list, I will be giving you my recommendations of the top 10 mafia-inspired movies that you definitely need to watch. But before we begin, don't forget, if you want to stay up to date with everything to do with historical movies and historical TV shows, then subscribe to my channel, History Spoil. At number 10 is The Irishman, a Netflix original mob film which tells the story of Frank Sheeran and his involvement in the criminal underworld, with particular attention being focused on the murder of teamster Jimmy Hoffa. This mafia film has a really interesting plot, but is exceptionally slow paced, and I do think it could have easily had 30 minutes taken off of its runtime in post-production to make the film more enjoyable overall. But the acting of the main cast, including legendary actors Robert De Niro, Al Pacino and Joe Pesci, is fantastic in this film. And although this Martin Scorsese epic may not be as stellar as many of his other projects, The Irishman is still a great one-time watch for anyone with a Netflix subscription. At number 9 it is The Last Don, a movie based on the book of the same name written by the legendary author of the Godfather books, Mario Puzo. And this movie may not be on the same level as the amazing Godfather films, but it's still an excellent watch nonetheless. With a complex and slow-paced plot about a war between two mafia families that spans across generations, this is an epic tale of revenge, backstabbing and violence which does a fantastic job of weaving a complicated plot into a fluid storyline. The Last Don is a great film which die-hard fans of mafia movies will absolutely love, as it is a slow burn, as The Last Don is a film which has a runtime of over 4.5 hours. The Last Don is the perfect recommendation for anyone looking for a well-acted, slow-paced and thrilling mafia adventure. At number 8 it is A Bronx Tale, a film that takes viewers back to the 1960s in the Bronx. And it tells the story of young Italian-American Colleggero and his experiences in the criminal underworld and the internal conflict he has when considering his duty and loyalty to his honest and hardworking father, but also his loyalty to the neighborhood mob boss, Sonny. This film was actually the directorial debut of Robert De Niro and the film that would launch Chaz Palminteri into mainstream attention with his riveting performance in the film as the mobster Sonny. The storytelling here is top-notch, the acting is brilliant, and the set pieces and overall production design is great when one considers the limited budget of the film. A Bronx Tale is much slower paced than most other mafia-inspired films, and it is less action-heavy as well overall. But if you're looking for a multi-layered, character-driven drama, then A Bronx Tale is the perfect recommendation for you. At number 7 it is Donnie Brasco, a film which tells the extraordinary true story of the 6-year-long undercover work of Joe Pistone and his infiltration into the Bonanno Mafia crime family, and how his evidence would result in over 200 mobsters being arrested or imprisoned. This film focuses primarily on the relationship between mobster Lefty Ruggiero, played by Al Pacino, and undercover agent Donnie Brasco, portrayed by Johnny Depp. And the strong bond that forms between these two characters forces Donnie to question where exactly his loyalties lie. And I think the acting of Johnny Depp is really the strong point of this film, as you really get to witness the emotional turmoil that undercover work can have not only on an individual but their family as well. So if you're looking for a unique, true crime film about one of the most successful undercover missions into the Italian Mafia, then Donnie Brasco is my recommendation for you. At number 6 it is Casino, another Martin Scorsese classic film which does a deep dive into the criminal underworld of Las Vegas and the explosive rise to power of Sam Rothstein, who will go to any means necessary to maintain his control over his newfound casino empire. This film of course stars Mafia film regulars Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci, and they are excellent as expected here. The film also benefits from a gripping and brutal storyline, and it does a great job of highlighting just how much influence the Mafia once had in Las Vegas. And the 3-hour runtime of this film really does fly by, as you're so engrossed in Casino from beginning to end. There are some issues with pacing, and I wasn't really a fan of the soundtrack for this film either. But if you're looking for a Mafia film which actually does a great job of building its characters and developing them in meaningful ways, then Casino is the film for you. At number 5, it is Scarface, an epic mafia film which tells the story of fictional Cuban drug lord Tony Montana, and this film depicts his rise from an impoverished immigrant to one of Miami's most feared and powerful drug lords. This film stars Al Pacino in what I would consider to be his second most famous role, and his acting here is spectacular, and it is really the glue that holds the film together. The storyline here is decent but very over the top and unrealistic in many aspects, and it is definitely the most bloodiest entry on this list. But those are just some more reasons to love Scarface even more, as it brings its own take on the mafia crime world. I'm sure any fan of mafia films will have already seen Scarface by now, but if you want a pretty straightforward, action-packed mafia adventure, then Scarface is the perfect choice for you. At number 4, it is The Godfather Part 2. A sequel to the Godfather film, and this time the story of the Corleone family is explored in 2 separate timelines, with one set in the present, focusing on the events of Michael Corleone's current crime syndicate, and a second storyline which depicts the life of Vito Corleone and his rise in the criminal underworld as a young Italian immigrant in America. This film brings a new side to Michael Corleone, and Al Pacino does a great job of bringing this darker and harsher character to life. And the cinematography and set pieces are amazing here thanks to the excellent directing by Francis Ford Coppola. But for me, the flashbacks of Vito's rise to power were the low point of the film. They felt unnecessary, didn't really add anything meaningful to the current story, and in my opinion, and I want to highlight this is just my opinion, I don't think Robert De Niro did a good job of portraying a young Vito Corleone. He just mumbled far too many of his lines, and he just didn't engage me in any meaningful way. But The Godfather 2 is still one of the best mafia films ever created, and it should definitely be a must-watch for any viewer of this channel who has even the slightest of interest in mafia-based films. At number 3, it is Goodfellas, which is arguably Martin Scorsese's best work to date, and this movie tells the tumultuous tale of Henry Hill, a real-life mobster who rises through the ranks of the mafia from a small-time criminal to a high-ranking and well-respected gangster. This film is based off of Henry Hill's memoir Wise Guy, and it really does give a fascinating look at how the stress of a criminal life can lead one down a dark and drug-filled path. Goodfellas has powerhouses Joe Pesci and Robert De Niro returning as mobsters for the film, but Ray Liotta for me is the real star of this film, and his acting here is spectacular, and I don't think he gets enough recognition for just how truly good he was in Goodfellas. This film does a great job of depicting the life of a mobster and the real sense of camaraderie and belonging one would feel being part of such a group. But it also magnificently highlights just how deceitful and deadly such a life could be as well. Honestly, there's not much I can criticize about Goodfellas, and all I can say is if you haven't seen Goodfellas yet, then please go watch it as soon as possible. The second spot on this list goes to The Departed, the only entry on this list with a relatively modern release date. And it is another undercover story, but this time with a Boston police force member going undercover in the Boston mob to try and bring down the head of the family. This film is unique compared to other undercover mafia style films, as it focuses less on the undercover agent questioning his loyalties, but more on the practical elements of undercover work, such as the immense stress and pressure of knowing the consequences of being exposed or caught would mean for the individual. And this film does a great job of really bringing that tension to life, as this is perhaps the most suspenseful mafia film I've ever seen. Jack Nicholson and Leonardo DiCaprio are absolutely stellar in this film, and Martin Scorsese is in top form here, bringing the world to life with excellent cinematography and production design. So if you're looking for a mafia story with non-stop plot twists and turns, then The Departed is my recommendation for you. And the top spot on this list could obviously only go to The Godfather, the film which is single-handedly responsible for bringing mafia culture and society to mainstream attention and popularity. And this film focuses on the decades-long story of the Corleone mafia family, being depicted slowly and masterfully over its 3-hour runtime. And honestly, if anything, this film felt like it ended too soon, as I could have easily watched another hour of such a fascinating and stunning film. The Godfather brings to forefront just what it means to be a mafia boss and the huge degree of betrayals and political maneuvering a crime boss has to contend with. But the most important element of the film is the acting of Al Pacino as Michael Corleone, who does some of the best acting I've ever seen in any film. and Marlon Brando, who steals every scene he is in. These two are able to make a 3-hour film with limited action sequences and a lot of talking feel like the most interesting thing in the world. I know some people find this movie to be a bit too slow paced and overly long, but for me these concerns are non-existent, and for me The Godfather is what I would genuinely consider a masterpiece of a film and one of the best films ever created. So let me know in the comments down below if you agree with my recommendations of the top 10 Mafia inspired films, and if there are any other great Mafia films I may have missed out on. And remember, as always, if you want to stay up to date with everything to do with historical movies and historical TV shows, then subscribe to my channel History Spark, and thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye.